So we're going to talk about organic compounds today. Does anybody know what it takes to be organic? So organic compounds are all made up of several elements, really, not just one, but they have to contain what? Good, carbon. Anybody know how many? Two. Good. So a compound, except one that has an exception, we won't even talk about that one, is organic if it contains two carbon. Any molecule or any compound that has two carbons in it is considered an organic compound. We're going to study three in this unit, okay? Most of these compounds are considered macromolecules. What does that mean? Macro. Big. Micro, right? Scope, you look at to make something bigger. Macro is big. Now this carbon molecule or compound always combines with several other elements. What do you think organic compounds contain besides carbon? What elements? Oxygen. What else? Hydrogen. Whoops. And there are all the answers. Nitrogen, phosphorus, and sulfur. Now, if you don't know these elements by their letter, write it down. Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, and sulfur. And a lot of people will reference it as CHONPS or CHONPS. Okay? And you got to remember these. We're going to talk about carbohydrates, which is an organic compound because it contains what? At least two carbons. And it's a huge, think of all these organic compounds are huge molecules that you take in and have to process. Always consider that. Look at this word the way I wrote it for you. Carbohydrate. So what is a carbohydrate made up of?
Carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen.
Good job. Carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen. Now I wrote it CHO because the order is carbon, hydrogen, oxygen in terms of knowing your organic compounds. And this molecule, this compound actually has a unique scenario where for every carbon, there'll be two hydrogens and one oxygen. So it's a 1 to 2 to 1 ratio. So let's look at this compound here. How many carbons? Count them. 6. How many hydrogens? And how many oxygens? Okay, so if I gave you a compound with 3 carbons, what would be the hydrogen? 6, and the oxygen? 3, okay? Now, what does every carb, when you think of a carb, what comes to your head? Food, bread, rice, starches, cereal, pasta. What do all those foods have in common?
They're made out of wheat.
Close. They're all carbs. What do carbs made up of? Nope. Sugars. So proteins is a whole other organic compound, so you know. So today you start thinking carb is its own group, lipid is its own group, and protein is its own group. All these foods that you mentioned are made up of sugars. Some have small amount of sugar, some have more amounts of sugar, but all of them make up sugar. And what did you say their function was? What kind of energy? Quick. It's your quick source. Get me going. I need a boost. I'm ready. I'm going to have some carbs. Now, besides sugars, there's also cellulose, and we'll talk about that in another unit. My types of sugars, there's 3. Based on the quantity, so when I say that carbs building block is sugar, that means every carb has blocks of sugar. So they're little sugar compounds, I wouldn't say little, big, and they make up the carbohydrate. Some carbs have 1 sugar. Some carbs have, what's this? 2 sugars, and some carbs have many. Anybody know the name to describe carbs with 1 sugar, 2 sugar, or many? What's a root word for 1? Good. Monosaccharides is correct. And examples are glucose and fructose. Bisaccharides is good, but that's not correct. What's another root word for two? He said bi. Duo. It starts with a D, actually. Close. Di. Disaccharides. And many is, I heard you learn this in religion. Poly. See how we all kind of intertwine some way or another?